Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to talk this evening about the SS Richard Montgomery wreck, which is a World War II wreck that lays off Sheerness in 20 metres of water. And it sank on the 20th of August 1944, and unfortunately it came all the way from Hog Island in the United States to be directed to an anchorage which wasn't deep enough for it. The number 2 harbour master, sitting at the end of Southend Pier, he said, "Sir, let's change that Montgomery, which was over its waterline, because it was heavily loaded with 7,000 tons of bombs, with a lighter ship in deeper water." But number 1 said, "No, I know what my business is," and he refused to move it. And in fact, he disciplined his number 2 and sent him off elsewhere. And during the night time, a storm blew up. It dragged its anchor, it landed and got stuck fast on the sandbank, and in the morning, when the tide receded, it broke its back. Now this wreck was very bravely cleared, the first part, by Rochester's and stevedores, who were not divers, but they worked very hard during the wartime under the threat of U-boats and aircraft attack, and they removed approximately 50% of the cargo. But when the ship got waterlogged, they weren't divers, so they had to stop their operations, and it's stuck there ever since, which is quite appalling really, because soon after the war, one would have thought they would have carried on with divers and cleared the wreck. But no, they've left it there, and worst of all, they've never defined a safe zone and moved people outside until that risk is removed. Unfortunately for every single government, they've broken criminal laws in the UK and international laws in not defining a zone and keeping people safe while there is a risk of that wreck exploding. There's no doubt about it. I asked the ex-Attorney General, Dominic Grieve, to prepare a skeleton argument to defend the current and all previous governments back to 1944, and he refused to do it. So they are in trouble. I just let you think for one moment. If in fact a bomb occurred in your high street through some works, and the army were called in by the police, and they looked at the bomb and said to the police, "Oh, this is very, very dangerous, we're not going to touch that," and hung a notice on it, and the police put a blue and white cordon around it to stop people touching it, and then the bomb disposal people walked away for 70 years, I think the police would be slightly miffed at that sort of action, and certainly I think the public would be absolutely flabbergasted that such a thing would happen. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what's happened with the SS Richard Montgomery wreck. They've hung a sign on it saying "Danger, unexploded bombs," and left it since 1944. And there's no mention about keeping people safe. When you read their reports, as I have done, you will see that in fact they do state there is a risk of this wreck exploding from a collision. It certainly would, if the vessel was sizable enough, cause the whole wreck to explode. Also, if the wreck capsized, or if in fact the munitions inside moved around, which they wouldn't do because they're stuck in a nestle of London clay mud, or if the ship broke up. Well, if that's a risk, that risk is greater today when you hear this film than it's ever been. And so what will happen if it did explode? Unfortunately, over 14,000 inhabitants on Sheerness would very likely lose their lives, and many thousands more. I've applied to the Department of Health to have all the risks computer modelled, because in fact I am the world leading scientist in bomb disposal of all sorts, including nuclear bombs, and that has been part of my stock in trade when I was working at the Ministry of Defence establishment at Fort Halstead, the Royal Armament Research and Development Establishment. And I also give advice to the American team on how to attempt to make safe a terrorist nuclear bomb if one turned up. But they refused my offer. They said, "We don't need to know that." I said, "Well, I think you should do, because that should be part of your risk assessment." It's even worse because the Health and Safety Executive have emailed me that they have never carried out a risk assessment on the SS Richard Montgomery. On top of that, on the Isle of Grain, we have the largest storage of liquid natural gas in the whole of Europe, within 5 miles of the Montgomery, which is within its danger zone very comfortably. And so, if in fact a collision took place, or something which the Department of Health have not mentioned, Department of Transport have not mentioned, a terrorist attack, that large 1 million cubic meters of liquid natural gas would be completely demolished because they're in surface silos, and that would lead to the most massive poisonous gas cloud, heavily charged with carbon monoxide, and that would have the blast power of 160 Hiroshima nuclear bombs. But although there's no radiation attached to them, certainly all the oxygen would be removed from the ground upwards to several thousand meters in the sky, which would take, depending upon the prevailing meteorological and wind conditions, over half an hour to be replenished. And the combination, if people were not killed by the blast, they'd be certainly asphyxiated if they're in the path of this gas cloud, and it could in fact kill most of us in the southeast of England, including one very important lady, Her Majesty the Queen. So the charge that I am bringing against the government and all those responsible, including Medway Council here, who refused to be briefed by me on the technical aspects of this wreck, will be facing not only breaking these explosive laws, but facing charges of treason too. And it'll be up to a jury to decide whether or not I've made the case against them. So I do hope that all the stories, the huff and puff that's gone on about this Montgomery, it is not as dangerous as in fact the Department of Transport claim it is. If it broke up, it wouldn't explode in my expert view. A collision certainly would cause it to explode, and also a terrorist attack. All those bombs in that wreck, in my expert opinion, have always been safe to clear. I've looked at all the previous experts that did in fact give advice, even from my own establishment, by my boss, but unfortunately in the current light of new information, their advice has been wrong, and they never knew about the fact that we had to protect people from explosives as our #1 priority. But bomb disposal guys know that. That's their very first action, and they've never been asked, nor their organisations, because they would make that Richard Montgomery safe. And in fact, I've got bomb disposal guys currently working who are prepared now and offered their help to help me. So I do hope that in the very near future now, that I will be able to be in a position to challenge the government in Parliament if I get this Rochester seat, and it'll be the most amazing maiden speech I will make, and I will get the go-ahead to clear that Montgomery, and I hope to do that very early in the new year. I've already got the Smit Dutch Salvage Company. I've had a meeting with them in 2008, and they said, Mike, if you're going to lead the way into that wreck in your small submersible, which I've said I would do, a small submarine, that's good enough for them and their team. And I said, I can assure you that it is only as bad as crossing a road and being killed because you haven't looked. It's got to be done my way or no way, with the expertise that the salvage company will bring into the thing which I know nothing about. And so I hope to take this offer up, and the most I would ask people to be away from the area will be for no more than just 1 week, which you can go on holiday while we and my team, we clear the wreck. So thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you'll see me in the future, and I'll be going and taking this project forward. Thank you.